Coming to you from St. George, Utah, this is the podcast 70 is the New 50, a fun view of the joyous side of aging. Brought to you by Utah Tech University, the Institute for Continued Learning, the City of St. George, Washington County, and Intermountain Health. And now, 70 is the New 50.
Well, welcome to 70 is the New 50. This podcast is brought to you by the Institute of Continued Learning, where we hold 60-plus classes each semester, geared to those of us who are 50 and better on the Utah Tech University campus. It is our privilege to be part of the Live Long, Live Well initiative in our community. I'm your host, Wendy King. I'm joined today by two accomplished guests, Gary Sorensen and Warren Stuckey. The setting for our recording, we are in the podcast room run by Sean Denovan on the Utah Tech University campus in gorgeous St. George, Utah, the gateway to Zion National Park and other unique wonders of the West. Our topic today is retire. Oh, wait, no, it's Rewire, a different perspective on life after work and how we create meaningful, healthy, stimulating, and positive lifestyles. Well, let's get to it. Gary, you have worked in the travel industry for over 25 years, starting off as an agent and now as a regional manager of Morris Murdoch Travel here in St. George. Correct?
Yeah, it's an exciting career I've had.
Well, great. You're also an instructor at the Institute for Continued Learning, where you have a very popular class, Traveling the World. Gary, can you share some of the benefits of an active lifestyle that includes travel?
Well, I'm glad you brought up the class because this is my 11th year teaching Traveling the World, and I love it. And I learned so much from my students, and it's so much fun. And I would encourage you to come out. There are so many great classes at ICL. But traveling is a great way for everyone to rejuvenate, to rewire, to get out there and be stimulated in your mind and get your body moving, and as opposed to just sitting at home. But with travel, you can explore new destinations. You can meet new people, eat new foods. You can have so much added energy to your life just by going out and experiencing new things.
That is so true. I mean, I've had the privilege of being able to travel basically around the world, and I've really enjoyed a lot, including that food. That's great. The Coalition of Aging reports that regular participation in social activities, including travel, is associated with a lower risk of dementia, has been linked to fighting depression, maintaining heart health, and reducing stress. Have your clients shared anecdotes with you about how travel has really helped them with their health status?
Well, first of all, I want to make sure that everyone knows there is a way for you to travel no matter what your abilities are. You know, you may be restricted in some areas, but you can at least travel. And when people come back from these trips, they are so excited, and they're ready to go again immediately. Wow. Because they're having so much fun. And it's great because you not only see these wonderful places, but you meet these people. And a lot of times, if you're on a group or a tour, which I highly recommend, you develop lifelong friends that you keep in contact with afterwards. And so you can go on with that. And it's really interesting, too. With travel, the anticipation of your trip is so energizing and fun and exciting, just getting excited for the trip. And then the trip, of course, is wonderful. But then afterwards, you get to talk about that trip and share that trip, share your pictures. And it just makes it complete.
Yeah, that's awesome. I know that travel, people might not think they're able to travel, especially after they've retired, before they've decided they're going to really rewire here. But is travel really affordable for everyone?
Some kind of travel is. There are so many different levels of travel. Yes, there is luxury travel that is quite expensive, and you need to be able to pay for that. But there are ways to go that are less expensive. For example, on a cruise, you could go on an inside cabin that's a lot less expensive than a balcony or a mini suite or something like that and save money doing it that way. Or you can go when it's like a shoulder season, which means it's not the peak season for that destination. And so it's a little bit cheaper on these shoulder seasons. So there's all kinds of ways to save money. So yeah, there's travel for everybody out there, and there are destinations for everybody. And as I mentioned a few minutes ago, just about anybody can travel. We send people on trips that are wheelchair bound, or have special dietary needs, or different things. And age is not a barrier either. I lead groups. I take groups to Europe every year, and last year I had, I think, 3 or 4 people over 80 years old with me on my group, and one of those was probably the most energetic of the whole group.
Oh, that's awesome.
And it's exciting.
Oh, good. Yeah, I'm looking forward to my next trip here. So, the coalition also reported that travel or planning trips or even navigating on a trip stimulates your brain, and it strengthens brain cells. And one report, they had a study of taxi drivers in London who, of course, their job involves tons of navigation. And their hippocampus, Dr. Stuckey, is that the correct way to say it?
Yes, indeed.
Even grew larger. So I know when I'm traveling and sometimes I get the job, well, most of the time I get the job as the navigator. So I had no idea that I was really increasing the size of my brain.
Well, I think any kind of travel will increase your abilities. Think about it. If you're sitting on your couch watching Wheel of Fortune every day, as opposed to taking a river cruise down the Rhine River in Germany and in Switzerland, what a difference that is. Your mind is seeing all these new things and experiencing all these new great things, food and history, and making you think about things instead of just Wheel of Fortune.
Oh, that's so true. And Warren, I know a little bit that you've just recently gone on what I'm going to call an intergenerational trip to Ireland with your adult children. How was that experience? Can you share a little bit about that?
Yeah, I can if you want me to get into trouble.
Sure, go ahead.
Huh? All right. I hope my kids don't listen. Yeah, my daughter, Jackie, came up with the idea that just me and my 3 kids, no grandkids, no spouses, just the 4 of us go on a trip. And the kids are from my first marriage, and I couldn't decide what the motive was of this trip. Whether it was they were going to try to get me alone and have a come to Jesus moment, or if they just wanted one last chance to bond with the old man before he died. And so we did go to Ireland, and it turned out it was the latter. They wanted to bond with the old man before he died. So
great, wonderful! What a great experience. And one of the things is, I think Gary, you commented a little on this, is that travel gives you an opportunity to talk about things with your grandchildren, with others, that is not just about your aches and pains and the maladies that you have and the challenges that you have with everyday life. So have people, opened up and really learned a lot about, the world basically, and you've observed their change, and I'm going to call it their change in demeanor.
Oh yeah, absolutely. They are so excited for life instead of being bored. They're excited for life, and they come back rejuvenated and wanting to share their experience. whether it would be with family, and help them to learn more about the world. And just like Dr. Stuckey, it's so great to go as a multi-generational family and experience things. So every time you get back together again, that's the first topic that comes out. Remember when we did this in Europe? Remember when we experienced that? And it's a bonding time, just as you mentioned. It's great for families.
Oh, that's wonderful. Well, I have a couple of questions a little bit about, I don't know, how, Warren, maybe you've incorporated travel, or how your experience once you retired and decided to, do something different with your life. I'll just start a little bit and talk a little bit about what I know about you and what you did before you retired and now rewired. You've been a guest on the podcast before, so folks may have learned a little bit about you before, but I'll just be brief. You were a board-certified urologist, a former chief of surgery at Dixie Regional Medical Center, now Intermountain Health. You are also an instructor now of 2 classes at ICL, including creative writing, Write Your First Novel, which I have taken and recently repeated. I'm working on that novel. And are now a published author. You've got, 7, 8 books now published?
10 probably. I've got 9, and 10 is the 10th one's at the publisher.
Oh, great. And I guess recently we've gotten the release of The Death of Samantha Rose, which is part of your Doc Cooper series. And you and I have had the opportunity to talk about our retirement and rewiring journeys, and I'd appreciate you sharing with our listeners how you got off the couch, if you would.
Okay, Wendy. I was a urologist, and I worked 60, 70, sometimes 80-hour weeks. And going from that to doing nothing is a real shock to the system. And plus, I was in a job where I felt like I was doing something worthwhile, and then to all of a sudden be living off the government, And so I sat around the house and got on my wife's Linda's nerves for a year, and she was about ready to throw me out. Well, in fact, she did. No, she didn't. And so I thought, well, I better do something. So I signed up and started working in the Doctor's Free Clinic. And then I signed up for ICL and started teaching those 2 classes, the creative writing class, and then I teach a men's health class as well. And it improved my marriage and my disposition considerably.
Oh, that's great. Would you say that the transition time was it hard to figure out what to do?
My transition time from retirement until I started doing those 2 things I mentioned was about a year.
Okay.
And in that year, I did get clinically depressed. I mean, what am I going to do with the rest of my life? Yeah. And so I felt like I had to do something. And so, and of course I've been writing books as well. So between that and the other 2 things.
It's kept you busy, huh?
Well, and then there's, people at ICL like Wendy that gets on my nerves. So that keeps me going.
That's great.
Okay, so Wendy, I don't know. I think maybe we ought to turn this around. You had a very interesting career, and you had to have the same transition I had to have. At least you did after you got out of prison. Well, no, folks, she didn't really go to prison. She was charged but never convicted. So
that is funny because I was in fact booked one time. I have to tell you though, I do not have any felonies on my record.
So anyway, Wendy, why don't you tell us about your journey?
Sure. Well, my story is I have retired a couple of times. And found myself really needing to rewire, as I say. For 30 plus years, I had a career as a leader in an academic medical center, an administrator. I worked at Stanford University, Georgetown University, the University of Vermont, and I finished my career up at West Virginia University as the chief financial officer for the Health Sciences Center. I was responsible for millions of dollars. I built big construction projects, high-tech research buildings that were worth over $350 million. I was an advisor to literally kings and queens, the President of the United States, the Congress of the United States. I was asked as a special advisor to work for them on how to build a new clinical center at the NIH headquarters. I had a project where I was advising the Library of Congress. And when I went to retire, well, I have to tell you, Gary, the first thing I did was go on a trip. So I had a first time in my life, I was able to go on more than a 2-week vacation. And I went to Norway, Denmark, Sweden, and finished up in Germany. And it was a fabulous 3 weeks. And then, Warren, like you, I got home, and I thought waiting for me was going to be tons of emails. The phone was going to be off the hook with messages. People seeking my wisdom and my advice, my former colleagues, of course. The phone never rang. There was not one email from anyone I had ever worked with before. And I couldn't believe it. I thought I had so much to offer now that I could think and offer a little wisdom. And I really was shocked. So I thought about, now what do I do? And one of the things I decided to do was, okay, I better get out and volunteer full time. So instead of having a paid job, I'd just go get another job. And, it would be a measure of my worth, right? I'd do it again. Well, I did that. I did a couple of volunteer things. And you know what? While it was satisfying, it wasn't really rewarding. I wasn't doing anything that was giving me what I needed. So guess what I did? I decided to go back to work again. And I had a couple of full-time positions, but they weren't leadership jobs. And after a while of doing that, I did that for a couple years. I figured out, wait a minute, I want to be flexible with my time. I'd had a little taste of it. So again, I decided that I was really done with work this time. And I was thankfully financially able to do that. And said, now what do I do? And I was so blessed to find ICL. And what I found was the Institute for Continuing Learning, taking courses, stimulated my curiosity. So Gary and Warren, I'd like to really sort of end this session today talking a little bit about what advice you have, maybe 3 pieces of advice you have for folks about how to rewire. Gary, let's start with you. Of course, travel, right?
Yeah. Well, and it doesn't have to be an international trip around the world. Just going a little distance. Go to Zion National Park. Just the important thing is to get off the couch, to do something, experience something, get your body moving, get your mind thinking and seeing things. And that's what travel does for you, whether you're near or whether you're far away.
That's so true. And Warren, what about you? Three pieces of advice.
I don't have that many.
Come on, pull it out of yourself, buddy.
Well, I agree with Gary. Getting off the couch is key. I mean, I think there's 3 things to aging gracefully, or keeping your your wits and your youth about you as long as you can. And one is physical activity. You've got to get off the couch. You got to have physical activity. I take my dogs for about an hour and a half, 2 hour hike every day. And then you have to stimulate your mind. And I do that by, well, like we've mentioned, I spend about 3 hours. From 4 a.m. till 7 a.m. is sacrosanct for me. I write, my novels.
Great.
3 hours every day. Then I take the dogs out for a walk. Teach my classes, work in ICL. All of that stimulates your mind. And then I do have a ongoing, continuous online chess game that I have. So I think those are the keys. Keep the mind stimulated, keep the body stimulated.
That's great.
That was only 2 things.
Oh, that was 2?
Go to an ICL class.
Yeah, there you go.
And go traveling with Gary.
Okay.
That's great. Well, hey, it's been wonderful to have you all as guests today. And I'd like to close, if I can, with a quote. There is a fountain of youth. And I think Ponce de Leon traveled to the New World to try to find that fountain of youth, Gary. And while he didn't find it, I think we could find it. And the quote goes on to say, "It is your mind, your talents, the creativity you bring to life, and the lives of the people you love. When you learn to tap this source, you will truly have defeated age." And that's from Sophia Loren. So again, well, that's a wrap. Thank you to our guests, Gary Sorensen and Warren Stuckey, and all of you for joining us for 70 is the New 50. Stay curious, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you so much for joining us for 70 is the New 50. In coming episodes, you will meet the rock stars of our community who are sharing their expertise to empower us to stay young, healthy, and happy as we age. We will see you on the next episode of 70 is the New 50. In the meantime, live long, live well, and live with joy.